Roy won a Golden in 1989 for his project Aspects of Gaia, which was a telematic work that joined sort of his ideas of distributed authorship with sort of a physical engagement with the environment in interesting ways. He was also commissioned to write a kind of futuristic vision for the future of Ars Electronica and the Ars Electronica Center, which he called Ars Electronica as data pool, which is predicated on ideas of connectivity that are so central to his work. And he produced a piece called The Televator in the Ars Electronica Center, which is a video elevator. And when you go up Ars Electronica Center, Linz, Austria, Europe, the Earth disappear beneath your feet as you go higher, sort of like Eames' powers of 10. And then when you descend, you come back down to Earth through the same progression. So there's a very interesting connection between Roy and Ars Electronica historically, and Roy and I also share a history with Ars Electronica because it was here 20 years ago in 1994 that we met. So it's really special for me to come back here now, because I was just finished 1 year of grad school. I was totally green. I didn't know anything. So I wanted to return to this idea of Roy Ascott and the artist as shaman and make a little comparison. So for many people, the artist shaman is synonymous with Joseph Beuys. And here we see Beuys kind of enacting a Renaissance model of the artist genius having a one-way communication with a rather passive audience. And this is very much in contrast to the essence, I think, of Roy's work and his contribution to art, which is very much about a multiplex communication network, where there's no single author, but where creativity is shared, and collectively, through a process of distributed authorship, an emergent global consciousness comes into being. Beuys, the artist shaman of the 20th century, Roy Ascott, the artist shaman of the 21st. So although it was over 20 years ago when I first encountered Roy's work, I really recall that experience of first reading his writings. It was, for me, much as how Roy described his first encounter with cybernetics around 1960, an Archimedean Eureka Experience, a visionary flash of insight in which I saw something whole, complete, and entire. As an aspiring art historian who loved figurative painting, but was equally fascinated by the recent emergence of the World Wide Web, and interactive CD-ROMs, Roy opened my mind to an alternative aesthetic framework that was radically different from the conventional one I knew. As he noted, the recognition that art was located in an interactive system rather than residing in a material object provided a discipline as central to an art of interactivity as anatomy and perspective had been to the Renaissance vision. And this is true of Roy's early interactive works like the Transaction Set, as well as his more subsequent telematic works and the Planetary Collegium itself. And I see this as sort of embodying a larger cultural and social shift in the information age, where meaning and value are not embedded in objects, institutions, or individuals so much as they are abstracted in the production, manipulation, and distribution of signs, which have become the new currency of interactive systems. Roy made it possible for me to imagine how emerging technological media were offering tools with which the future of art would be developed, for he'd been doing so for decades. Indeed, his praxis amounts to a substantial history of ideas in the field of media arts. But more importantly, I think, his work extended beyond the realm of art, or rather, epitomized how art, at its best, offers a model of possible futures that people can experience in the present. In this respect, his telematic art theory actually functioned in the present as a testing ground for what more recently Nicholas Berriot has later described as learning to inhabit the world in a better way. So I would argue that Roy is not only a pioneer, a visionary pioneer of media art, but a visionary pioneer of relational aesthetics and of contemporary art in general. When I met Roy at Ars in '94, I proposed editing a book of his essays. I'd started reading your work and I thought, oh my God, this is great. And I said, Roy, you know, your work's amazing, but it's like in Cambridge Opinion 1964, Cybernetic in 1967, these obscure Austrian exhibition catalogs that Heidi Grundmann edited, and they need to be together in one place so everyone can see kind of the entirety of your brilliance. I don't think I said it in quite those terms, but that was the gist of it. And you said, I know, and a certain publisher in Massachusetts was interested in doing something. Can't seem to get it together. And I said, well, I'd really like to do it. Let me try. I have some connections. And you said, well, come and visit me in Bristol. So I came and visited you in Bristol. And it was a really formative and memorable experience for me. We spent days going through your archives and talking. And at the end of it, I said, well, what do you think? And he said, well, you should do the book. I said, I couldn't believe it. I just finished 1 year of grad school. And you thought I was the right person for it. It was the most wonderful, generous gift that anyone has really ever given me, entrusting your work to me. And that gift, I hope I did it justice. That gift has really influenced my thinking as a teacher and how I treat my students, as well as how I try to conduct my life as a human being. It did result, as Derek mentioned, in the volume Telematic Embrace, in which the word visionary appears, because I really think that that's apt. So many of the things that Roy envisioned many, many years ago have come into being. Remarkable foresight. And so I think we really need to be paying close attention to what you've said since 2000, when this book sort of ended in terms of your writings, because I imagine that what you've had to say over the last 14 years will come to be in the future as well. So this book, I think, sort of demonstrates your remarkable contributions to not just media art and contemporary art and art theory, but to intellectual history in general. So the generosity that you demonstrated with me, and I later learned that you're sort of widely known for being this remarkably generous being. And indeed, throughout your career, Roy, your generosity as an artist, scholar, and mentor has deeply influenced innumerable artists and theorists around the world, who've then subsequently spread and expanded on your ideas. And I think that this rippling effect has really an incalculable impact on contemporary art practice. Joseph Kosuth stated that quote, art lives through influencing other art, not by existing as a physical residue of an artist's ideas. He continued, the reason why different artists from the past are brought alive again is because some aspect of their work became usable by other artists. Extending this logic, I would argue that Roy's work is more alive today than it was in 1960 or 1990, and I envision that it will become increasingly alive in 2020 and 2050 and beyond than it is today. So in the spirit with which Roy entrusted me with editing his collection of essays, and also in the spirit of distributed authorship, which is at the core of your theory of telematic art, I entrusted some of your colleagues and students to provide insights into your influence on their own work and media art around the world. And I think that their statements offer strong evidence in support of my claims about the ongoing importance of Roy's work and for decades to come in future generations. So I'll just let you read these. We can have a moment of meditative silence. Victoria herself is a visionary artist. And, these things just multiply. Notice that these are from all around the world. US via former Yugoslavia, Australia, Brazil. Really, I don't know how you do it, Roy. Globe-trotting the way you do at your age. Flying here from Brazil and off to China tomorrow. And speaking of China, or Korea, actually the collection of essays that I edited in English was not the first collection of your essays. It wasn't even the second collection of your essays. And I think that this international recognition, really even before the recognition in the English language, says something really special. I think this is a really beautiful part of this statement by Doyen Choi. Here's the new Chinese volume from 2012, published in conjunction with a major exhibition of your work in Shanghai at the Biennale. And actually, there are more of these quotes that I collected from your colleagues, students, former students, the list of admirers, and people who are so grateful for what you've contributed to their practice and their being in the world is extraordinarily lengthy. To conclude, and in the spirit of this year's Ars Electronica theme, what it takes to change, I'd like to share with you a little thought experiment I initiated about a year ago when I asked the following question on Facebook. What would the world be like if Roy Ascott's La Plissure du Texte sold at auction for $34.2 million instead of Gerhard Richter's abstract painting? In what sort of world and art world would that be possible? The first response came from Carolyn Langille, who was a student of Norman White, who worked in a department that you created at Oakhead. Well, even though he went there after you departed, your influence lasted, and then this becomes like a second and third generation student of yours, who says, and that money would be distributed like the artwork. This short, sharp prod shrewdly suggested an alternative economic model based on distributed authorship, whereby royalties from the resale of a telematic artwork would be shared among the project's geographically disparate participants. So let's imagine a scenario in which the commercial art world embraced Ascott's La Plissure and its ideology of distributed authorship. It would be logically consistent for that art world to express those commitments by distributing the economic wealth generated by the sale of the work. What, after all, could generate more cultural capital in participatory culture than making a gift of the appreciated value of an artwork, particularly an artwork that was a harbinger of participatory culture itself? The values of this prospective future art world and the larger world of which it is a part would be very different than those currently prevailing in neoliberal capital markets. Such a world would place a premium on collective production as well as the collective sharing of the wealth generated by that production, including its appreciated value. Art would not be a primarily financial investment, but rather would be an investment in the cultural capital accrued by supporting visionary art. Here, the highest form of cultural capital would be garnered by the distribution of wealth rather than its accumulation. It would reward visionary investors who had the insight to acquire artworks that best exemplified an ethos of collectivity, sharing, and love that characterize Roy's artwork, aesthetic theories, and educational programs. By recognizing Roy Ascott as the inaugural visionary pioneer of media arts, Ars Electronica, I think, is taking an important step in that direction. Thank you very much.